Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at some really interesting source material. It maps out these two fundamentally different ways we seem to make choices every day. We're talking about this framework of soul growth versus ego growth,
That's right.
and specifically how this split really defines whether our actions lead us towards connection and healing, or if they, just build more walls and make us pull back. Our mission today is really practical. We want to cut through some of the metaphors and find the actual, behavioral signs.
Yeah.
How can you tell, maybe in a moment of stress or when you have to decide something, which system is actually running the show? And how can you choose the path that feels more aligned with your deeper self?
Okay. So to start, we really need to define these two systems clearly. The material doesn't frame ego and soul as like good versus bad. Not really. It's more like two different operating modes.
Knowledge it, okay.
Yeah. The ego mode is described as reactive. It's driven fundamentally by fear and a sense of scarcity. So it looks for outside approval, control, and that quick transactional fix.
Right, the immediate gratification.
Exactly. Whereas the soul mode, that's presented as proactive. It comes from a place of inherent worth, of abundance. It's seeking internal alignment, being present, and looking for genuine connection.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because, the soul mode sounds great, obviously, but the ego mode, the one that pushes us to perform, to strive, that often gets rewarded, doesn't it, in the real world?
It does.
So if the ego is telling us, push harder, work faster, achieve more, how does this soul framework deal with the fact that sometimes you need that drive to succeed?
Well, that's really the core tension that the sources get into. They argue that the ego's kind of success is often fragile. It's fragile because it relies constantly on getting that external thumbs up. Soul growth isn't measured by those external things. It's about an internal shift, a recalibration. And honestly, that often feels counterintuitive, especially when you're stressed.
How so?
Well, for instance, ego growth might push you to, say, highlight your suffering to get praise. Look how hard I worked. I deserve recognition for this struggle.
Right, playing the martyr a bit, maybe.
Doing like that. Whereas soul growth asks for the opposite. It suggests choosing to maybe lower the bar for yourself, just for now. To embrace being gentle when your heart feels tired, simply because you're worthy of rest. It doesn't matter what you've achieved or performed.
Oh, okay.
It's that shift, you see. From striving for worthiness to operating from a place of already having worthiness.
So that frantic, not enough, scarcity-driven push for perfection, that's a sign of ego.
Yeah.
And the sign of soul is more like taking that intentional pause, choosing gentleness instead.
Exactly. And that feeling of push often shows up in one of the most basic things we do every day, how we deal with food.
Yeah, the sources brought this up, the idea that our relationship with food acts like a surprisingly accurate mirror for what's going on deeper inside. It's rarely just about vitamins and minerals, is it? It gets tangled up with control or shame or needing instant comfort.
Absolutely. When the ego is kind of driving your choices around food, the internal talk is often destructive. It focuses on filling some kind of emptiness that, let's be honest, food can't actually touch. So ego might say, eat more. Just fill that void. Or maybe eat junk food in secret because you feel like you failed anyway, or even ignore what your body's actually asking for and just eat what looks good right now.
Yes, that's familiar.
It's very focused on consuming, on deficit, but the soul framework tries to shift this. It encourages you to have more of an intentional, almost relational conversation with your body. It's about practicing intentional presence, really listening deeply to what your body is signaling.
Not just the cravings, but the actual needs.
Right. And eating with gratitude, choosing foods that actually nourish you, recognizing that your body is, well, the sources say sacred. It needs care, not punishment.
This leads to that brilliant little exercise from the material. It's so concise. It can turn a rushed meal or even a snack into a kind of a spiritual check-in. The idea is, the next time you put food in your mouth, just pause for a second and ask yourself one simple question. Does this food love me back?
It's such a powerful reframe.
It really is. It shifts the whole reason you're eating. It stops being about policing calories or feeling guilty, and it starts being about self-care, self-respect even. And if the answer is no, the source suggests that maybe that action is purely ego-driven. It's looking for that quick fix, that fleeting transaction, instead of real sustaining nourishment.
And if you can bring that awareness just to eating, something you do multiple times a day, well, you started building a really strong muscle for making intentional choices elsewhere too.
Okay, so moving from how we treat ourselves individually
Yeah.
to how we relate to others. This soul versus ego thing plays out hugely in our most vulnerable connections, right?
Right.
The framework argues that intimacy and sex are these really important doorways to the soul. But the ego, well, the ego's pretty good at barricading that door.
Oh, absolutely. Intimacy is incredibly revealing, isn't it? Because it brings up our deepest fears. Fears about control, about being vulnerable.
Definitely.
So when the ego is the one driving intimate moments, the motivation tends to be external, often transactional, like we said with food. The goal might be using that connection to feel powerful, or maybe performing a certain role to keep up a facade.
Or trying to possess or control the other person.
Exactly. Or hiding your own wounds. The connection becomes about proving your desirability or maybe managing the other person's perception. Whereas the soul framework, it demands authenticity. Its goal is simply presence. It suggests moving past the performance and allowing for, well, the sources talk about radical acceptance. Letting the body and soul actually meet in a place of real openness and trust, where being vulnerable isn't seen as a weakness, but actually as the requirement for real depth.
That distinction, performance versus presence, feels absolutely critical here.
It is.
So, if ego connection is about what you take or what you prove, soul connection is more about what you share and what you allow.
Precisely. Sharing yourself authentically and allowing the other person's authentic self to be seen too.
And the sources give some practical steps for choosing this more soul-led approach
Yeah.
in those moments of connection. And they aren't about like specific techniques or anything. They're purely about the intention behind the connection.
That's right. It focuses on things like slowing down, just breathing together for a moment, speaking your truth rather than letting unspoken worries or assumptions kind of hijack the moment. The intention behind it should carry a clear message. Something like, I see you, you matter, I'm here with you right now.
That feels very different from performance.
Worlds apart.
Okay, so these examples, food, intimacy, even just choosing to rest when you're tired, they really show that soul growth isn't some big dramatic event. It's more like a discipline made up of consistent small choices.
Exactly, which means we need a way to kind of synthesize this. A sort of behavioral litmus test we can use in pretty much any situation.
Right, something practical for the day-to-day.
And the main practice offered in this framework is really about pausing before you act. They call it the breathe and feel concept. It's about creating that tiny gap between whatever happened, the stimulus, and how you react to it.
That space.
Yes, that space. And in that silence, that pause, you can ask the central question, the real litmus test. Is this choice I'm about to make driven by love or fear?
Ah, okay. And that feels like the clearest difference between the two modes.
It really cuts to the core.
Fear drives the ego, right? Fear of not being good enough, fear of missing out, fear of being vulnerable, fear of failure, all those things.
All scarcity-based.
While love, in this context, it drives the soul.
Mm-hmm.
So that's love for yourself, respect for the process, believing in your inherent worth.
Exactly. Trusting that you are fundamentally okay and acting from that place.
So what happens when we mess up? If we choose fear, if the ego reacts badly,
Right.
the framework says the way back is through forgiveness.
Absolutely. The ego loves to latch on to self-judgment, doesn't it? It creates these loops of shame.
Oh, yes.
Soul growth requires letting go of the mistake, healing whatever damage was done internally or externally, and then opening back up again. You have to forgive yourself, forgive others, recognizing that this is all a practice. It's not like you reach some destination of perfect soul growth.
Right.
Small steps win. Choosing the food that loves you back. Choosing the kind of touch that truly sees you. These little moments, they add up. They accumulate into a life that feels more intentionally aligned.
And to help with that internal shift, to maybe quiet the ego's constant critical voice, the sources suggest a couple of simple affirmations. They're designed to shift your mindset back to that state of worthiness. The first one is, I deserve to be nourished in body, mind, and heart.
That's powerful. It counters that feeling of undeserving.
Yeah. And the second one, this feels like it's about giving yourself permission to just be and to connect authentically. I allow love and presence to flow through me.
Which is really permission to receive, isn't it? And to stop performing.
Exactly. Stop trying so hard.
So ultimately, what this deep dive seems to reveal is that a lot of our pain, a lot of that constant efforting in life, it comes from mixing up our temporary states, like being tired or hungry or how well we did on that last project with who we essentially are, our permanent self. You are not your mistakes, you aren't your desires or your habits, you're the awareness behind them, the one who's observing all that.
So what does this all mean for someone listening? What's the takeaway?
I think it means the biggest transformation doesn't have to be this huge, monumental thing. It happens when you consistently try to choose the soul path in those tiny moments, the micro choices.
Like with food.
Right. Or how you connect with someone giving or receiving touch with that pure, non-transactional presence. Each time you consciously do that, you're stepping more fully into a life that's defined by healing, by connection.
It sounds like a gentler way to live, ultimately.
It can be. And this final insight from the material offers a lot of grace, I think. While the work can feel demanding sometimes, the standard for trying again is always accessible. The core message seems to be, you are worthy and you are inherently loved, regardless of your performance in any given moment.
Which leads us to that final provocative thought. It's based entirely on that idea of grace. It's this. No matter how many times you feel you failed today, or maybe even just in the last 5 minutes, how many times you chose the ego way instead of the soul way, you always have the power in the very next moment to simply choose again.
Just choose again.
That single decision resets the whole system, right then and there.